an objection out of 9 units with voting rights. We have 8 present. Eleutheria is here. Ulfrung is here. Indomar, Gwyneth, Berserkers, Justigeist, Rome, and Guard are all represented.
Recording has started.
Thank you.
Hey, for the record, mates, I'm not allowed to vote on the AWC.
Right. Is there anyone else in here coming?
I don't think so. I've been AFK for a couple days. I just got back. I
got you. So really, as far as representative voting units, there are only 7 out of 9. So we get another Justigeist member. You don't have any of them kids just like staying in your garage or something? You can just put on a microphone somewhere?
If necessary. I've got 3 members I could grab.
Okay. All right. Well, moving forward, this really shouldn't be very long. It's mainly to discuss and go over the amendments or the input, rather, that Eritari gave to the bylaws committee through Dominus and Ericos. I believe both of you guys had the opportunity to sit in on some of those meetings and talk with those people. Is there a formal updated proposal including their input, Luda?
Yes, there is. I will link that in the chat in just a moment.
Thank you.
Also, most people should have received it in direct email if they didn't see it elsewhere.
I think we all did. My question was purely for the recording.
Okay.
All right. So is there anyone unfamiliar with the input that was provided? Great. Is there anyone who feels like the Eritari needs more input?
I haven't had a chance to go over the edited version. Which I need to do anyway. So there's that.
Okay. Well, your time in the meeting, how did you feel they responded to what you had to offer?
Generally speaking, it was a fairly collaborative process.
Good.
But I haven't double checked the outcome. There's one thing I thought we all agreed on that wasn't included, and that's as far as I got. So I still need to review the entire document. The revised document, to be clear.
I got you. Ericos, I know you had input you wanted to give forth, and I know it all went through Dominus, but how did you feel that meeting was?
I think our last working session was excellent. I think everybody really stepped up and basically took the time to understand each other's perspectives, and I think a lot of very positive changes came out of it. Much like Dominus, I actually am just now looking at the revised document. I apologize that I've been busy with a lot of other things, and then I was completely out of communication for a couple days. Literally off the grid. It's pretty awful.
That sounds like a good thing to me. I like it when I'm incommunicado for a little while.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, let me give you guys a little interpretation to what I've got in front of me right now. The proposal that was made back at Needwood, at the time, I didn't think we had a second for it because, while we're all talking and getting used to doing things again, no one formally said I second that proposal. However, I think we need to look at the fact that it was proposed by 2 different representatives at the same time. Does anyone see that as not being a second?
is that saying that being representative on the AWC is the same thing as being a representative on the bylaw committee?
No, but two representatives at the AWC were, pretty much integral members of the committee. So I can't remember exactly how it went, but let's say it went like this: Runa and the Olfrong and Luda of the Guard were actually, in her role as secretary, were both present. And since this is an amendment to bylaws, you don't need to be an AWC member. You can be a board member to present it. So I'm kind of looking at it as one of those two people was the presenter and one of those two people was the second. Does that sound like something that is wrong or something anyone disagrees with?
Sparloff, if I may. I know I wasn't actually at the AWC meeting because I took off before it happened.
Right.
But I had shared my personal thoughts with you prior to that meeting, and in talking with you, I had actually seconded it anyway.
You did.
And gave you my votes too. But I skipped the meeting though.
I know, and honestly, did get Lath on the phone to make, because we had a forum issue when we finally got to him. We were already in the discussions of the proposal. My question I'm trying to get to everybody right now is, I think that this was a proposal that was proposed and seconded, although maybe the words were different. Does anyone disagree with that?
I definitely don't.
I don't have any heartburn with that. I'm just wondering, tonight, is it being reproposed?
For the new version. Is the new version being proposed?
I believe it is, yes. The reason for all this is,
But he should propose it.
and in order, we do have a proposal and a second, in my opinion, of one that we're not going to be discussing now.
That's a previous version. That's right.
Right. And forgive me, I have to go on mute for a second. You guys are going to hear my garage door slam shut. Hold on. Sorry, I don't know where that storm came from, but it has gotten dark and windy awfully quick.
I'm sitting in my Jeep in the storm, so yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yep.
All right, so then I guess what we're going to go to first thing that we always do at these meetings is old business, and I'm going to call the previous proposal that was seconded, if no one disagrees, as old business. And I believe we either need to vote on it or someone needs to make a motion to table it, considering we're going to be talking about a newer version of that proposal.
I'll make the motion to table it and let us discuss the new version.
Second.
All right. And forgive me the way these votes have to go. I believe it's in a how do I do that, Stone? That's in a different channel, correct?
The question is,
AWC votes.
do you want to do a voice vote or do you want to do a type vote? If you want to do a type vote, there is a AWC chat votes channel that we can put a proposal on that everyone can type their response in, or you can just do a voice vote based on your decision.
I'm just thinking for posterity and record keeping, what do you think is the best course of action for this?
I thought this was being reproposed now.
It will be in the new business portion of the meeting. We have to get through this old motion first. So there's a motion to table it and it has been seconded. So
Oh, I got it. I bet.
the old motion. We'll just do it by voice. And for the sake of voice, I guess we'll just go down the list. Guard.
Yes. Table.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Scott. Nice. All right. Then we got Indomar. You obviously made the motion to table. I can assume you're voting to table.
Yep, 2 votes for tabling.
Okay.
Just say SKA or TG rep.
Skate here, GTG rep.
2 votes for tabling.
Hi.
2 votes for tabling.
2 votes for tabling.
Okay. Dominus, Rome.
2 votes for tabling.
Okay. Drusk, Gwynedd.
2 votes for tabling.
All right. Ofrung, Runa.
2 votes for tabling.
Okay. And Tien, Eleutheria.
That's a table for 2 votes, Your Honor.
Fantastic. Okay. So the old proposal is tabled, and I'm sure that's from now on, I guess that's all going to be whatever happens with the new proposal will directly affect that. I don't think that's going to be a problem going forward. I don't have any other old business. Does anyone else have any old business before we move right into the new stuff? Okay, let's open it up to new business. And I believe there is a new proposal. So who wants to make that?
Guard can make that proposal.
Okay.
I guess I'll second the motion.
Okay, so for clarity, you're proposing the new version of the updated bylaws, and Ofrung has seconded it.
That is correct.
Okay. Now, I know, Dominus, you need some more time to read through this.
I do. I kind of need to go through it line by line. I do have some concerns, though, that I'd like to speak out about now.
Of course, absolutely. It's going to be open for discussion. I'm just trying to see. I know that some of us were able to read it and all that stuff, but I want to make sure that people who haven't had the opportunity yet can have any concerns they may have voiced and brought to the attention of the members of the committee that we have here.
Roger that.
So if you've got some already, I think now is probably the best time to bring them up.
Well, one of the things, I haven't had a chance to talk to Ericos about this either. One of his concerns was that the proposal be made so it was ironclad, so that once everything was perfect, it could be locked in place. So it would take an overwhelming majority in order to overturn the bylaws as presented. And we're not quite there yet, but we did change. But it was changed so that you need an overwhelming majority in order to change it, even though a bunch of our concerns weren't addressed. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, Ericos. I should preface that. Let me preface that first. I should have said this. I don't mean to be a naysayer, and I'm not trying to obstruct. I just want this thing to be perfect. I want to do it right, and there are a couple issues I still have. And you could outvote me. I think you've got the majority at this point easily. But there are a few points that I think are really key, and I want to speak on those too.
I understand. Ericos, it sounded like you had some input there you were trying to get in?
I've started going through it, but I'm not finished by any means. And I think I have some pretty good, at least initial positive contributions.
Hand.
Okay.
Hand.
And as far as outvoting you, Dominus, this being a bylaws change, just to let the entire AWC know, a 3/4 majority is required. This is not a simple majority vote. So that's just for everyone's information. Luda, could you or Runa speak to some of the Airtari input that was brought up to the committee and was included or excluded for any particular reason?
I think we did vote to increase or raise the bar for making bylaws changes, but we didn't push it as high as was requested, partially because I think committee doesn't feel comfortable trying to predict what problems the new bylaws will run into and wants to leave enough flexibility that if there is a problem, it can be addressed. So I think that was the thought there. We did move some sections around, I think, to make them make more sense and clarify some of the language. So the intent didn't get across as well as we thought the first attempt, and I think the second attempt cleaned it up a fair bit.
This is Luda.
Go
So
ahead.
I would say that anybody who attended the 2-hour meeting the first time and then I think it was a 3.5-hour meeting the second time, we'll see that the committee was very interested in compromise, and that's what this new version reflects. We listened to every single point that Aratari brought up. However, I would like to state that just because Aratari has an issue with parts of the bylaws does not necessarily mean that that is what the community will best be served by. We have a lot of intelligent people across the community, and so we did listen to every single point carefully, and in a lot of ways we compromised. So I'm very happy with what the committee came up with. Over.
Thank you. Dominus, did you want to bring up any other concerns that you had mentioned?
Yeah, thanks. One of my major concerns was the tone of the document, and it's been addressed. I appreciate that. Like the word authority was in there 24 times when, and we replaced almost all of those with responsibility, because everything that should be done by somebody holding office should be done in service to the organization. So it's all about responsibility. When you have the word authority in there, you attract people who want authority over other people instead of people who want to provide a service to the organization. It's the same reason we don't, we have a safety patrol at Ragnarok instead of having a security patrol. That way we don't get the Nazis and the bullies and that kind of thing, or, the welcome patrol, what have you. It's just a smarter way to go. And I thought we'd agreed, a lot of the director titles, I feel, here's where we made a mistake. When we put together our own bylaws, when I wrote the draft of our original bylaws, the president, vice president, all these lofty sounding terms, that's what's attracted so many people. That's what's been used against us for years, where people think these are positions of power. They gravitate towards them. People from other realms come and run in our organization to be vice president or, whatever, in order to hold office in the Aratari, because they think, I'm the president of Dagger here. And that was never intended. And, I wrote those before we became that national organization. So that's a lot of the history behind it. I feel like calling everybody a director, and it just it comes off the same way. They sound like positions of power. And for instance, they gave on one that was the director of operations, and now it's called chapter liaison, which is more apt given the service they'll be providing to the organization. However, I thought we agreed, for instance, that treasurer would be the new title for the director of finance. And I thought from there we could start talking. So there are a few things I think aren't quite there yet. That's why I have concerns. I don't want people being drawn to positions of authority. I want people being drawn to positions of responsibility.
I can actually.
No, please go ahead.
Go ahead, Aha.
Sorry. So for those of you that may not be aware, I was chairing most of the bylaws committee meetings, and I can respond to those changes that the bylaws committee did not make based on the Aratari suggested edits, specifically regarding the titles for the various board of director positions. The consensus among the bylaws committee participants was that the titles as written and as decided on over the summer, were written that way in order to describe the function of the title and the job of the person holding that title. We felt that titles like treasurer, like vice president, like president were the ones that would attract authority seekers, whereas a title like director of public relations, director of finance, instead is describing the function of the job rather than describing the job as a position of authority. So while we conceded that director of operations was perhaps difficult to parse in terms of figuring out exactly what that means, and conceded that chapter liaison would be a better name for that role, as we were working through the document, we as the bylaws committee did not feel the need to change any of the other titles into titles that we felt would be more representative of positions that would attract authority seekers.
I got to say too, I fill this awkward void. Stone was really helpful during the entire meeting, and I really appreciate all your efforts on our behalf. I thought you represented our interests dutifully and faithfully, and it's appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you.
This is Luda.
Go ahead, Luna.
I also wanted to add, as far as the discussion point of authority versus responsibility. So we did cover that extensively in the last two meetings, as well as in meetings during the summer. And the reasoning behind using authority in certain cases is because the bylaws is a legal document, and we did do our research as far as what would be needed in a legal document. And authority is that type of description that one pretty much must use in some cases. So while we did go through the number of references to authority and found the ones that we felt like we could change to responsibility, I think it's fair to say that we could not change all of those to responsibility if we're going to have a stronger legal document. Over.
I know you left them in some places, but it was necessary. I thought we had consensus on that.
Yes, that is. But since it was raised again, I wanted to make sure that other people attending this meeting understand all the work that went into that conversation. Over.
This is Stone. I do want to present that, state that there was a general consensus among the bylaw committee that we thought that they thought that it was going to be a little bit more of a working document, that we knew that the chapters were going to have more input, especially for certain sections, such as the arbiter, and that there was still going to be some changes to it, but that the general consensus of the committee was that the document that we're presenting here is a workable document that could fully function for our needs.
And I think that was always the goal, right? Was to get something out there, because as new sections become created and new people start to stick up, everyone's going to have, their input, and they're going to put their spin on it. We're talking about opening up, the organization to a much broader range of volunteers, and they're all going to have their ways of doing things. And I think you're looking to give them a little bit of freedom to do it that way.
Something along that lines was actually the subject of a significant amount of discussion at our last meeting, the one that ran for about 3.5 hours. Some of the suggested changes from Aratari included significant changes to the arbiter section, or suggesting that we consider rewriting the arbiter section entirely. Suggested considerations for changes to the structure of the legislative body laid out in the bylaws, and several other things. And the consensus among the bylaws committee members was that the role of the committee was not to be creating an ironclad document that has no flaws, partially because that's an unrealistic goal, partially because the stated goal and time frame of the bylaws committee was to create a functional set of national bylaws within the span of 3 months' time. And so then deciding that the bylaws should become or that this bylaws proposal should become an ironclad document is moving goalposts to an extent. And last, because the process of then revising the bylaws, rewriting certain sections of the bylaws, if that's what we end up doing, would take so much time that it would be disrespectful to our Atari for giving us a time frame and then us extending that time frame significantly past when it was supposed to be turned in. It would be disrespectful to the rest of Dagger here that is waiting for some sort of functional document to be put forward. And it would be disrespectful for the committee members who had put significant amounts of time and energy over the summer into creating a document that we all felt really solidly portrayed a workable solution.
I think going over these was asking you to be disrespectful in any way. In fact, the Atari gave you a deadline and the Atari have concerns and you're responding to those concerns. I don't think it's disrespectful. As for the rest of Dagger here, how many of these people plan to leave anyway? Or how many of these people plan to leave if they don't get their way? And if Atari was around now, would be trying to take away his copyrights. You know, it's disrespect goes both ways. So does respect, and trying to respect the process and support the process. As far as the arbiter goes, all of you agreed unanimously, I believe, that there are issues with the arbiter position, that it's overpowered, that there are no checks and balances, that it should be addressed. You just didn't feel that you wanted to address it based on the timeline. Correct?
So among the several things to respond to, I'm going to start with the arbiter because there was a significant amount of debate by the bylaws committee members over the summer when we first decided that we wouldn't be significantly changing the arbiter position at that time, and then further debate at the meeting last week. The consensus among the bylaws committee members was that the arbiter as a role is a role that needs significant levels of change and that it's not necessarily operating the way it was originally intended. However, we as the bylaws committee, this being a volunteer group that was not representative of all of Dagger here, felt that because the arbiters as a role is a very important role that should be to do service to rewriting the arbiter faithfully and effectively, that should have the input of Dagger here as a whole, not a group of people that are willing to meet every weekend over the summer to get a working set of bylaws written. So partially because of time constraints, and partially because the job of rewriting the arbiter is not something to be left to a small group of volunteers. That's something to be worked out by all of Dagger here when all of the members have full faith that the changes are actually going to be acted upon.
Continuing on that full faith statement, I have read and I've been had multiple leadership from and respected members from multiple units and organizations and chapters across the country straight up say to me that they don't trust Eritari anymore and that they are waiting for this bylaws to change before they make the decision. And they were using the creation of said bylaws as their decision if they were going to stay in Dagger here as a sport or if they wanted to move to a different organization that, quote, respected their wishes better. So specifically, they were wanting to know that they were actually going to have input before they actually were started providing and putting in the effort to fix the arbiter.
And moving on to the topic of respect and to the topic of serving the people of Daggahir, the role of a leadership in an organization shouldn't be to demand respect and to demand authority from the rest of an organization. The role of a leading body should be to serve the organization as a whole. And so demanding respect and demanding that people follow the status quo when they have no input on the status quo
I'm
is
sorry,
another
wait. Let
responsibility
me
of
stop right
power.
there. You're taking up my point. Nobody's demanding respect. I was said as far as authority positions go, they should be about serving the organization. I mean, you're making my point back in my face. Are you arguing?
I'm sorry, I thought you said something about the people that were leaving Daggahir and not respecting the organization.
No, you said something about how we're asking the committee to disrespect the organization, the Eritari, no, I wasn't saying that. My point was I'd rather rebuild with people who want to stay and rebuild, not people who are like trying to force this through for their own personal agendas.
I'm not sure how many people in this call have been around for decades, but this is not something new. This has been the drumbeat for at least 20 years, maybe 30, that the Eritari is controlling, power hungry, and so forth. And it's only a few loud voices that say this, and of course they've poisoned the minds of other people. Anyone in this meeting right now should know by now that the Eritari is not that way, doesn't go around forcing their will upon others, and isn't a draconian organization bent on forcing their will upon others. So the people that are saying this are the same predictable people that cause trouble every chance they get.
I'm interested in the evidence you have to support that it's a small group of people.
The people behind this, it's obvious.
All right, I think we're getting slightly off topic.
I don't know why this is turning hostile. I'm not sure what's going on. You're becoming kind of like a negative Nancy here.
Now hold on, guys. The current discussion should be on concerns that that members of this war council still feel they have, versus and not so much the whole who's doing what, who's doing this, because this, like Erica, as you said it right, this is not new as far as people wanting the responsibilities of running Daggahir to be opened up to a national organization. That's not new, but there's no reason to start going down a line of starting to, try and point fingers at people who may or may not have ulterior motives. I don't think anyone who was involved with the creation of this document has ulterior motives, and I don't think they were bullied into having ulterior motives. I think they're doing what they genuinely believe is best for all of Daggahir. So I don't want us to get off.
So to be fair, Mace, the first national BGA proposal I wrote was at rank 16. And I've written a couple of proposals that I've proposed to the AWC since, and each time they've failed by a vote or two. So this is not something that I'm just now walking into for the first time. This is something that I've been asking for and advocating and writing proposals for at least a couple decades now. So to paint me as being a person who's not a willing and active promoter of this would be kind of unfair.
No, absolutely. I've never been one to question your willingness to try to do what's best. I just don't want there to be the mentality that whoever's behind this current proposal has ill intentions. And I felt like that's kind of where some of the back and forth was heading.
I don't think that was intended. I think he means the reason there's such an urgency to this, or a perceived urgency, is due to the results of the efforts of a few people on our organization, and the pandemic hasn't helped because it's been an online campaign. But I don't think it's as urgency is necessary. I'd rather do this right than do it wrong in a hurry.
This is Luda. So, talking from the secretary perspective, we have been coming through the list of chapters. Currently, we have 35 confirmed active chapters. This is a drop down from the 90 or so that I was given when I was first given the list of chapters. So, to say that people are happy with the status quo and what we have right now, there's a statistically significant number there that implies that they might not be. And the fact that we are putting these bylaws together is an important thing. And I hope that people understand what kind of numbers we're talking about as far as people still being involved in Dagger here. Over.
You're painting that as being the reason they're leaving. Just that's every contract signer that we had listed as the 90. It doesn't mean that many have left. It just means we haven't had battles in a couple of years. People move on. I mean, somebody signs a contract when they're 20 years old. You know, a few years later, they might not be as into Dagger here as they were then. So I wouldn't attribute that as the cause across the board for what appears to be a dwindling chapter population.
I would be interested in finding out if anyone except for Rome and Justice are interested in making this an ironclad document, because that is certainly seems to be a large talking point during this discussion. Over.
All right, this is Barloff of Indamar. I think the document needs to stay at least a little bit flexible, especially where Arbiter is concerned, because there are obvious problems that still need to be worked out with that. But to address Don's concern, or his original concern, at least as I understood it, is that he is concerned that the people who are pushing now to get this to go through may have their own agendas, or they may be trying to push this through and don't care what happens. They might just be a loud voice banging a drum, but
I believe what Dominic is saying is that the loud voices in the online community are not participating in this process. When's the last time Blackhawk joined one of these meetings? He's one of the most vile, loudmouth people on the internet. A lot of people, for reasons I can't comprehend, listen to him.
Yes, and I understand that, but I think Dominus's concern is that there are members out there who are pushing their own personal agenda with this, or members out there who don't intend to stay with Dagger here after this is in place that are pushing whatever agenda now. His concern is that maybe there are people out there looking to destroy Dagger here, but I could be reading it wrong.
That is a concern. I don't want this being I don't want the document being something that gets used against Dagger here. I mean, and for some people it's a takeover attempt. Those aren't the people who are involved in the meeting, though. This is kind of peripheral as far as my concerns go. I'd rather focus on the document itself, which I haven't had a chance to review yet. Thanks, Barloff, though. I appreciate it.
No problem. You're welcome.
This is Luda. So for the record, every person who participated in the bylaws committee meeting, I don't really question their intent. They are a number of good people who were seriously interested in preserving Dagger here, and many people saw this as perhaps a last-ditch effort to preserve Dagger here and to continue to see it grow. So I just want the record to be clear that I believe in every single participant of these bylaw committees, and I have no question about their concern about Dagger here. Over.
We've already stipulated we don't believe these are the people working on the bylaws committee. Please don't feel you have to defend them or vouch for them.
There was a question about the people who are pushing for new bylaws, and those people are intrinsically the people who were on the bylaws committee because they took the time to participate.
I can see that connection, how you can get from point A to point B, but I don't believe Dominus or Ericos, who have been the most outspoken with concerns, have questioned the people who've actually stepped up and tried to help. But it is an easy jump from point A to point B. I get it. And
may I speak for a second?
Sure.
Once again, I want to jump back to the work this committee has done has been exceptional. People who are on this committee have done an incredible job. I just want us to work towards something that when we're done, we can say, put a pen in it. 3/4 majority to change the bylaws is not, in my humble opinion, sufficient. That's like someone saying, I think this, and everyone kind of going, yeah, that makes sense. I think like 90% or something should be the threshold. The idea that the bylaws become malleable and just change at the whim of whoever's running meetings or whoever's in control at the time, I find that to be incredibly dangerous. As I said in our last meeting, this isn't going to come down a question of if somebody or some group of people in the reins of control decide to take this in a negative direction. It's only a question of when. So I just want to make sure that my intentions and my thoughts are very clear. And the reason I want this to be something a little more stable and something that we're willing to put a pin in, hope lasts for at least the next, 3, 5, 10 years, whatever, just to make sure that it does last and it does take that long and it does require that level of change in the organization for some people who have bad intentions are able to take the organization in a different direction, completely change it from what we know today, turn it into something that they want it to become. That's really and truly where I'm coming from with this. And I don't know why this turns into a thing that becomes like people getting their feathers ruffled. I think, as I said before, we're at the 95% complete mark here. Maybe 90, maybe 96, 97%. So I just want to make sure that's very clear.
Understood. And if I may, I'd like to speak just for a moment about the ironcladness question that Luda brought up, as far as thinking, does it need to be ironclad? And to do that, I just want to talk about our current bylaws for a moment, because I have them in front of me. And unfortunately, my position dictates that I get to interpret these things. And they are not the bylaws that I remember interpreting before when I was magistrate. They have changed. There are things in here that I expected to find that are missing. And now there's this whole more than half of the document that is the flawed arbiter position. Changing to the new bylaws has the exact same big chunk of bad arbiter position. We already have it. It's right here in front of me. And the 3/4 majority for the AWC to amend the bylaws, that's our current standard. Included in that is the written 4/5 majority of the board of directors. We have 6 positions now, so I don't understand why that wasn't changed a little bit. It was elsewhere in the document, but it's not here in this bylaws amendment. It used to tell me when new bylaws changes or rules changes took effect. And for all I know, the current rule book, which Ursus has the pleasure of interpreting, is different. This does not tell me when a new bylaw would take effect. I believe it used to be August 1st when new positions when new elected, volunteers were to take their office, but that's not here. So if this were to pass, I don't know when it would happen other than what it says in the new document that they have elections in May, just like we do. And this is not ironclad. We don't have that now. And that is to say that as long as it stays here in territory, maybe we have a little more, ability to keep the bad actors out. But it's a flawed document. That's what we have, what we're talking about bringing up. But the one that they're talking about bringing in has the advantage of having all of, the willing dagger here world to help make it right. And this one that we have here, they don't have a say in this thing. So I don't think that the bylaws committee should be trying to build an ironclad document. I think what they have done is built something that will work, and that was what they set out to do, and they did it in the timeline that the AWC provided them. So that's just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents.
If I might for a second, while we didn't increase or raise the bar quite as high for passing bylaws changes, the second draft does clarify some points regarding creating chapters to make it harder to pack the chapter council. And I think that helps make the document more stable and reflects the compromise that the committee was aiming for in raising the bar for making bylaws changes, but not raising it as high as requested. That those two changes together represent a good compromise.
Okay. Another thing that I want to bring up with you guys, again, the way the bylaws are written right now, there's no interpretation needed. At the last work council meeting, we operated on a proposal cannot be voted on in the same day. That's not here anymore, guys. I don't know where it went. It was here.
You're right. It's not. I got a draft. Remember, you guys asked me to redo the bylaws. I volunteered to do it.
Yes,
So
sir.
that we could. I've got a draft. I can upload it. It's been sitting on the Discord server for a month and a half now.
That's for the new Eritari bylaws.
Exactly, and it does include that month requirement.
Fantastic. Because it used to. That used to be a thing here.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
But my biggest thing that I don't know is, let's say the way the bylaws are written right now, it doesn't say that we can't vote today. I think we could. If we did and it passed, when do new bylaws take effect? Because that's not in here either, guys. I don't even have something to make a bad interpretation of. This is waters I have not found myself in with these before. So, barring some, extreme circumstance, I think we can vote today. Whether it passes or fails, I don't know, but I think it could be voted on today.
Shouldn't we have time to review the document?
Yes, we should. And I believe I saw something that just went up in Discord a little while ago. So it's only been available for 4 days. I know that's not a lot of time. So when can we get together again? How long do we need?
I need at least a week. What's our next battle?
It's next Saturday, but it's the Halloween battle, so I don't expect to see too many of your smiling faces.
Reason to show up.
Yeah, it could be.
I'm just saying.
I feel like the virtual setting is better than an in-person setting. Over.
Okay, noted.
Agree.
I prefer the in-person myself, but that's because this is strange to me and it's different and I don't like change. But I have no problems calling another virtual meeting.
Off of Indamar. I know that both Lath and I were not planning on going to the Halloween battle. So I know that we wouldn't be there for it. And you might have a lot of difficulty getting a quorum at the next battle.
If I may. All of that's totally fine. Due to personal stuff approaching, that if we're gonna have an online meeting, it needs to be like next Sunday or it's gonna be in November. And I'm basing this off of the magistrate will be busy too.
She's not wrong.
Why don't we do Thanksgiving? I mean,
Honestly, I think that's where we fall back into that realm of we owe it to this committee to vote on their proposal.
Soon.
But I can't just say, hey, we're having a meeting and then no one shows up. A meeting doesn't happen. That's why I think the sooner, the absolute better. I'll do it during the week if you guys want to do during the week. If we're doing it like this. If it's a meeting for a vote, it's should be painless, right?
This is Barloff again, if I may. It would be painless if we were just going to vote. The problem is that people still need time to review the document and to put their feedback out about the document. So, yes, we could convene for a vote, but if people have concerns that aren't addressed, they may just vote it down right away, and then we're pushing it back even further.
They may, but, and if I'm overstepping, Luda, please let me know. I think that we gave them input. They, either they weighed in on it. They decided to compromise or adopt things or disregard the input altogether, as is their prerogative as that committee. If, we say, hey, we have a week to review it and then we vote on it, I don't think we go back to the committee with more input. I think it would be voting yes or no. And Luna, if you think that the committee would rather get more input and talk about it all over again, by all means, let me know.
Or, here's an alternative path we could take.
Sure.
People who would like to take this as a base and make some modifications to it and propose an alternative bylaws proposal could also do that.
Sorry, this is Barloff again. My only problem with that is that I think then you are, if an Eritari member proposes it and it's not through the council, that it's going to piss off the general dagger hair populace. It's just a concern.
Orloff, if I may, I think that's a pretty good way of seeing who wants it to do this because they want to see the change or who wants to do this because they want their name on it.
I also think it's going to depend on what change is suggested.
Sure.
To me, that sounds like a vote of no confidence in the bylaws committee. And I'm not quite sure that is the best path to go down. Over.
yeah, I know.
I think I found the bylaw that Mace was looking for, the new proposal.
So we're going to go forward without anybody reviewing the bylaws I'm submitting for the Eritari, because it's reckless to move forward without that solidly in place.
Agreed, but we also get back into the question I asked earlier was when would they take effect? It doesn't say in here that amendments are immediate. It doesn't say in here that they start on a certain day of the year, and that's what we're talking about.
To my knowledge, bylaws changes have always taken effect immediately.
I've said from the very first meeting we've had on this topic that until we have a Eritari bylaws proposal in conjunction with this one, neither one should be voted on.
So then can we do that if that's a hang up for people? because
believe-
they're out there.
You just said that you're forwarding them.
I have them. They've been on the Discord server for the Atari. They've been on the Discord server for a month.
Thank
But I'd like to propose them today.
Okay.
I would second that. Shocking, I know.
I believe Dominus. Is it under Dominus proposal? Is that it in archive?
Is in our. Let me look real quick.
Thank you. Because I think the last one I saw from you was almost a day or two after the previous work council, and it was requesting it was like a Google document requesting input. I think that was the last one I saw.
It's in community proposals
Community.
under Atari bylaws.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And earlier on, Mace, you asked as far as if we would take additional input and have additional meetings. And no, I believe the consensus is that the AWC has given their input, and having additional meetings with additional consensus on the new bylaws is only going to draw this out further. Over.
Yep. Thank you.
I'd agree, Luda, but the thing is, the Atari World Council hasn't heard my recommendations yet. I mean, all they're seeing is the finished document, which includes some of the recommendations, which I appreciate, but they haven't heard all of my recommendations, and I think they do well to hear all of them. I'd really like to have this meeting in person.
Well, I have a question for you, Dominus.
Sure, brother.
I know after the last work council, when this came up that the Atari was going to funnel concerns through you, you were going to bring them to the committee. I believe you went to at least the next, I don't know, I don't go to those meetings. So I was told you were at the following meetings of the committee, correct?
I was, but that's not my point. The point
No,
is,
but my question is though, why didn't they get all of the concerns? Like, were there more afterwards, or what happened there?
oh no, they got all the concerns. They just didn't. They didn't address all of them.
Okay.
And like Luda said, the bylaws committee decided it wasn't necessary. But I wonder if the AWC would feel the same way about all those concerns that weren't included and the justifications for them, which I find compelling.
Hey, Dominus, I have a quick question for you. When you submitted those concerns to the bylaws committee, did you also send them to the AWC?
No, I didn't. I think I posted them. No, I sent them to you. I'd be happy to send it to the AWC. Where do I do that?
I kind of left the last work council meeting with the impression that we weren't so worried about receiving those because, those of us that had, feedback sounded like they had the same feedback. So I didn't think that he had to send them to the AWC. I thought, it was just kind of free range. Hey man, take your problems take your input. I shouldn't say problems. That's a negative word. And I don't know that they had to be, sent through the AWC. But
I only bring it up because now we are talking about the fact that the whole AWC didn't see all the concerns that Dominus submitted. So I was just wondering if the concerns had been submitted to the AWC so that they would have seen in advance. Over.
I got you.
Hey, I want to throw this out there for consideration. We should have an Eritari organization, perhaps even an Eritari chapter in place before all of this goes any further. We should make sure that in the subsequent organization following this, the Eritari does actually have something in place where we continue as an organization, aren't just basically have the carpet pulled out from underneath us, have a separate governing body make a decision of whether or not our chapter contract can be approved. And I think that would just be like kind of like a short-sighted.
Eric goes to speak to that for just a moment. Does that mean we have a chapter contract?
Oh, well, that's good news.
Well, we have an old chapter contract.
Okay, from how long ago?
Yeah.
I was unaware that we actually had done a chapter contract.
I was not aware as well.
I believe 8 years ago was my first term as president.
That would make it no longer take effective because of the new Arbiter chapter contracts.
True.
Okay. Well, never mind then. Disregard.
But also, Mace, we don't have anything official. For instance, suppose hypothetically, DBGA, the reins of DBGA and the EIN and everything else is handed to DBGA Inc., which is now a separate organization with separate bylaws and so forth. Eritari has used that same EIN for since the founding of Dagger here. We would have to have some official means of moving our bank account and our EIN and so forth for Eritari. We would have to set up something separate for that, a separate entity. It couldn't exist as DBGA Inc.
Can I ask a solid question concerning that contract?
Sure.
The us contract. So in dealing with the pre-secretary stuff, I'm looking at like the master list of things. 1977, so good for you. I think updated, it looks like October 4th. So just so everybody's aware of that.
Of this year?
Yep.
Well, so there
The
is
service
at least a current chapter contract. Do you have that contract, like a picture of it? Like who's on that? October, that's gotta be Ursus, right?
Yeah, I have Ursus Shank, Luda, Ericos, and you is under like the representatives. But
Okay.
as to who updated that, it wasn't me. So that might have been Luda.
Okay. So barring the legal stuff, which Erica's just brought up, the EIN and all that stuff, and bank accounts and tax information, we do currently have a contract with DBGA.
That's what it looks like.
Who is we? Because my always understanding was that DBGA was the AWC, was the Eritari.
The DBGA under the current way we do things is made up of Eritari elected folks, but the War Council that represents Eritari is separate. That's why, Ericos, myself, Luda, we can't vote in this Eritari meeting.
I really think we should understand what's in our chapter contract to make sure we have a current one. Am I saying something that doesn't make sense?
It doesn't.
No, it totally does.
I just put an addendum that I think might be able to handle it for the proposal for when these new bylaws take place. We just state that Eritari is a chapter, is an existing equal chapter of Dagger here. And then figure out the paperwork after that.
Yeah, worst case scenario, you just fill out another contract that follows whatever rules that are pretty much being discussed right now.
Before.
Yeah, before is definitely key, I think.
But after.
Well, yeah.
All right. So, in the essence
Right.
of moving this, sorry, go ahead, Barlow.
Sorry, I was just going to say that there's a high probability that the chapter contracts will be reworked by the new board of directors.
Sure.
And we will probably have to submit one then. So whether we have one now or later, I don't know that having one now is going to be as important as getting it renewed when they redo the contracts.
Having Eritari recognized as a chapter officially will allow Eritari to have a voice on the chapter council.
Yes, and also like getting the way that I did contracts last year, like over like the internet year, it's super easy to do one and then do one again. It's not going to take anybody more than 10 minutes to do. So if we have to redo something, it's not that difficult.
Right. I think the main concern that was brought up was making sure that we are officially recognized as we move into transition, not afterwards.
Right.
We don't want someone to come up and say, all right, we made this. Thank you very much. Thanks for the reins here, but you guys weren't a chapter. So yeah, we don't want that. That's not a fight that anyone needs to have ever. But
Absolutely agree.
in the essence of moving forward, I would personally like to, hear Dominus propose his bylaws. It sounds like he's ready to do that for the Eritari, because we do want them both on the table at the same time is something that's been a key point, I believe. Am I wrong?
Correct.
So I would like to end discussion on the current proposal and move on from there, because I think we're going to talk ourselves in circles here, guys.
So what is the way forward for our current proposal?
I believe that those who haven't read it, you guys want a week, right?
Please.
I would be fine with voting on it next Saturday.
In person or online?
It's probably going to have to be online.
So here's a
We're
question.
planning to vote before we've had a chance to review it.
Right.
So here's a question.
Sure.
Do we have to hold a meeting in order to vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There must be a
Just
meeting forum.
Valid question.
Mhm.
So are we thinking Friday the 22nd? What date are we thinking?
So honestly, I do have to go to the battle on Saturday. Again, I don't expect to see very many of you, and that's fine. I know what the Halloween battle is. We all do. But either Friday evening or Saturday evening, I think are our best options. I know those are people's weekends. I know they're options, but if this is literally a meeting to vote on this proposal and probably this Eritari proposal, I don't think it should take up a whole lot of time, because if we're operating under the fact that we're not going back to the committee, then it should just be a yes or no vote as the document stands.
I'd like to move that we do precisely that, set a date, and then maybe after that we should have a discussion about what the implementing steps are. But I think we owe them an up or down vote at this point.
Is
I
everyone
agree. When do we want to do the meeting, though? Would it be Friday better for everybody, Saturday better for everybody, Sunday better for everybody? I know no one mentioned Sunday, but I am.
Erica's did as well. You're okay.
All right. Yeah, there's two of you. That's fine. I can do Sundays. I can, take some time if I know my team's going to lose anyway.
You'll be fine.
Still a Redskin fan.
Aw.
You mean the
Even
Washington
Washington
football team?
There it is. Thank you so much, everybody, for reminding me.
It's real to me, damn it.
So what day works best for everyone, guys? Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? We're going to vote on this damn thing in a week.
Can we post a poll? I know that seemed a little weird, but
Or write it in the chat. Like, write which day you prefer in the
Sure, we have that. We have the technology, they tell me.
field.
So you said I go to AWC chat votes.
Some people might need permission, just a heads up.
How about we just put it into the AWC chat since you're just doing a poll?
I don't know how to do a polls. Do you know how to do that?
Not easily. We don't have the software put in. Everyone just type what you think is the best.
Okay, there you go. In the AWC chat vote.
Just read the answers, honey.
All right. Well, I'm in AWC chat votes and I don't have any answers yet.
Sweetie, go to the AWC chat and read the answers.
I'm in it. Oh,
Not
chat.
the votes, just the chat.
All right.
Love you, but my God.
All right, look. Hey, I'm doing the damn thing on the phone. Give me some credit. All right, so hold on. So right now it's between Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And let's see here. Starting with Ericos, we got Sunday. Did you have practice on Sunday, Ericos? Really? Al Gould doesn't care.
Practice is 2 to 4.
Arlo.
Anyone's welcome to join us.
Lathe is a Sunday. Oh, damn it. All right. Okay, it's going to be Sunday. That's enough Sundays. I got a lot of Ennies. I'm going to call it all Sundays because the Sundays are very heavy right here. Not a lot of football fans. That's fine. All right. So is earlier in the afternoon, later in the evening better? Because that's next, guys. I got a later. So you said it's 2 to 4. So it's going to be what, after like 5, 6 o'clock? I got a 5. Okay. I got a 5, 5, 6, 7, 5 plus. Whenever. Thank you, Al Ghul. Makes it easy. The 5s have it. 5 p.m. 5 p.m. on Sunday, whatever freaking date that is, calendar. That is the 24th. Sunday the 24th. We are voting up or down on the committee's proposal. And moving forward with this meeting, Dominus, is there anything you want to say about your Eritari bylaws proposal? I'll go on record first saying, Dominus, I haven't read it, but I've never seen your proposals steer us in a bad direction.
Thanks for having confidence.
So I'd like to hear, is there anything, different from what we currently use or anything you want to talk about independently?
Yeah, it completely divorces national administration from Eritari responsibility. And that's the first order of business. So I've got that all separated out. Let me put it this way. I've set up everything that I have a concern with about the national document. I've integrated into the Eritari document. Everything should be a position of responsibility, not a position of authority. Renamed some of the positions. The only innovations I've included, it's mostly our bylaws. I did put in the thing about you can't vote on something in the same day as you propose it, because that's been at least a tradition for 20 years.
Yes, it has.
The only innovation I put in there was regarding the arbiter. We don't go straight to the arbiter if we have issues. We try and take care of them ourselves. And also, we should have warnings before suspensions and bans in most cases where safety isn't a concern.
Okay.
And I know what you guys are thinking, but no, I'm not suggesting that be retroactive in any way. Just putting it out.
Okay.
I did read them. I went through them, and it seems pretty solid to me. Like I don't really have any complaints about it, to be honest.
Okay. Is there anyone who has questions for Dominus? Is anyone ready right now to second his proposal?
One thing, do you have an up-to-date email list for the AWC? And would you share that with me, please?
Ooh, that's a great question. I currently do not.
I'm gonna say no unless Luda has one.
I pulled one together. It wasn't. It bounced on. Sorry, which chapter? It bounced on Druss, King Druss, and a couple others. So
Can I ask a favor real quick? So I could just email this out to everybody? Could I get your email addresses? I don't want to bog the meeting down, but it'll just take a couple minutes.
Type them in the chat, maybe.
Yeah, I'll PM you.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Perfect.
Even better.
I'll send the Gwyneth information over to you.
That's an adorable email, Algul, and I approve.
Thank you. I had to set them all up for the different commanders of the unit. So
Yay! So cute. And I'm gonna be honest, you can send it to Mace and I'll read it because we live together. So
Guys, I'm going to take just a minute and go on mute and go use the restroom while we deal with the email things. Be right back.
also, hi, Sai from Zorn Vongel.
Mace, I'm very glad you're going on mute for that. I appreciate it.
We all do. We all really do. Watch this man walk past one bathroom. He goes to another bathroom. He crazy.
Question: what is the likelihood I'll have to type anything else into my phone?
Unlikely.
Good. I'm going to start driving again. So if anything needs to be typed, guess what? It's not happening for me.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, I know.
The storm doesn't look too bad though, so I think you're okay.
Yeah, but I got like an hour to drive, so.
Ugh. It's always something.
I know. It's like an hour to drive from the lunch I cut short with my dad for this meeting.
Aw.
To home. So.
Well, parents are more important. No
I'm sure
offense
they'll feel
to
ashamed.
nerds.
Yeah. Well, you know. Life happens.
He's coming back. He just waved. Not while peeing, so.
Quick question.
Because I wouldn't want to know what he waved with.
Is Mace's email address still maceofblackrock@yahoo.com?
Ooh.
think it's more than-
No. You want he's got a new one. It's a Gmail.
Yeah, but the old Mace works too.
You still have access to it?
Yeah.
I don't. It's like I don't even know you.
And
That's
I
my
just
secret
realized,
email.
You bastard.
I'm gonna have to modify this video to not show the emails.
Oop.
That's why I PM'd to Dominus myself.
Ditto.
You can just do audio and it's the same effect.
Thanks. I hadn't even thought to look at that. Thanks.
Do, 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 do.
Okay, I'm just grabbing the attachment now, guys. Thanks. I'll send this out in just a second. By the way, and just so nobody feels left out, I got Ericos, I got Algol, I got Lathe, Barloff, Stone, I believe, PM Lucast. I got a double. I'm not cross-referencing. I got Mesa Blackrock. Elias, I got you, and I think that's everybody. Am I leaving somebody out?
I sent dresses over.
Okay, that is sent.
Thank you, sir. All right. So with everyone getting it and it about to be in front of everyone.
Yeah, let me speak to it a little bit.
Sure.
I've gone rather than board of directors. Now, somebody's told me that you have to call it the board of directors in Maryland, and perhaps that's true. I haven't read up on recent laws, but I thought we should, and I don't know if we intend to file for nonprofit status. I think we should, but I also thought that we should go for what the other chapters go with. We should have a chapter administrator. Instead of a vice president, we should have a deputy administrator. And perhaps instead of board of directors, we should have, I don't know, a management team. Something that sounds a little less lofty. Like I said, I'm trying to set an example for what I think the board of directors for the national organization should consider. So if you really want to hear summaries, a lot of that's in the comments section on the far right. If you have Word or Google Docs of the track changes, you should be able to read all of that commentary.
Okay.
I took out arbiter. That's a national responsibility. In fact, all the national responsibilities, I believe, have been removed. See, Luda, it's not like I don't support the process or the intent.
All right. So I want a quick scan. It all looks, boilerplate, common sense. Makes sense to me.
What does boilerplate mean?
Same thing as common sense.
Okay. Say common sense.
Run of the mill.
Just open with that.
Thanks.
Yeah. It looks like what we all, I think, expected it to look like, coming from someone who's already drafted bylaws in the past.
That's a little better than run of the mill. Thank you.
No problem.
Just a small point, not important too much, except the current chapter contract says that the officers for a chapter shall be administrator, administrative assistant, and bookkeeper, and that more positions may be created and staffed as the needs of the chapter dictate. Over.
Okay, deputy administrator, administrator's assistant. I'm fine on either.
Right. In the past, and I don't know what the chapter council would view things on, or if they're even going to change the contract that much. DBGA has always taken the stance that you call your people what you call your people.
Pretty much. You interpret it as like if you got whoever's first name is yada yada, second name yada yada, if there's a third yada yada, and then you put it in as whatever.
Right. I understand it's in the contract that way, though.
Hey, Dominus, one thing I would really like to see in our leadership is participation requirement.
I couldn't agree more. I tried to steer clear of innovation in this, though.
The people on this call, that there have in the past, if you go in the Wayback Machine, there was a time all of the people on the BOD for the Aratari, none of them had been to a battle in the preceding 3 or 4 years. Not a single member of the BOD, and those were BOD positions for life. So to give you an example of how things can be run very poorly, that was a period when things were run very poorly.
Or not run.
Sergeant, this is Barloff of Indemar.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm driving, so I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Is there a provision in there stating that only active members of Aratari can serve on the Aratari Board of Directors? Or whatever we're going to call it?
What do you mean by active?
A member of an active unit.
Yeah, that's.
So the unit has to be active for the member to be active.
Yeah,
I think
basically I'm more the point I'm getting at is a member from an Ohio group can't come and be on our board of directors.
one beauty of Luda's efforts is that they won't want to anymore.
Yes, I would agree, but
that is the goal, is that it doesn't sort of cross boundaries in that way. But if I may sort of remark as somebody who is a part of a unit that a lot of times the amount of people that show up is 2, in the current way that things are run, you need 6 battles of the same 4 people. But what if 1 or 2 people of that unit show up all the time and are at everything? They don't still count as an active unit, but could they count as an active person?
I would consider that an active person personally.
This is the point I was making about participation requirement.
Yep.
So in order for an individual to count towards their unit's active unit status, the individual would have to have been to 6 events in the preceding calendar year.
Right.
Whether their unit counts as active or not, I would agree with Erica's on that. An individual has to have 6 events in the previous calendar year.
Okay, just for clarification, so then a person can show up to 6 events and be active, but for their people to have voting rights, if we're keeping that the same, you need still 4 or more showing up to 6.
Yeah, my apologies. I think they got changed to 5.
Yeah.
To 5? Oy vey.
Yep.
I would like to have some kind of
Yeah.
participation requirement. That's just me, though.
No,
what I
that's
think every
that's
position
I
fair.
agree, but
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
inclusion.
I don't want to punish the one, like it's for example, it's like Mace and I, Eleutheria, yeah, we do a lot of stuff, which is not true, but it's Mace and I are pretty active, so it's like if one of us wanted to, example, run again, I don't want to have people rely on other people's ability or desire to show up to things to negate their want to help the game, if that makes sense.
yes, I absolutely agree. I think you have to be an active member to be able to run, and that would make sense to me. Whether your unit has voting rights or not, if Olive Guard decided to not show up except Graymail for the next 6 events, I don't want Graymail to not be able to say, "Hey, I want to run for president."
Exactly. Okay. Cool. No, fair.
Just as an example. Yeah. And I was wondering if there was a provision for that in this.
There is not, but I'd be perfectly happy to propose one in the document. And I like where you're going with that, Barlow.
Yeah, it makes sense. That way you can't have somebody who comes to one battle from Texas being like, "Hey, I want to run for your board of directors."
Well,
Exactly. We know where that leads.
and on the on the other side of that coin, looking through this, look at who votes for these people. Who's going to vote for the one guy from Ohio who came to run?
Well, sometimes people have put up a very convincing argument.
Happened before.
It has happened.
Yeah.
And that is why I'm stating it.
It can turn into a popularity contest if somebody is liked enough.
Well, we got to stop that because then I'll never win anything ever again. So, yeah, let's shut that down.
Ha! Suck it. Can you tell we're married yet?
So, aside from that, Erico's, have you seen anything else? I mean, I skimmed right by that and wouldn't have thought twice about it, but it's a really
I see some 4/6 and stuff like that. Not sure that it was 6. I haven't gone through this yet with a fine-tooth comb, but at a high level, I like this.
The 4/6 may be something from our current bylaws, because with the addition of the arbiter, there was one section that was changed to 4/6, but others were not. And yeah, that's under the board members. 4/6, the board members must be in attendance for a quorum to exist or to legally take any action. I believe that's the only place in the current bylaws where the arbiter position looked like it was physically represented for voting. So maybe that's where that came from. Probably why it got in there.
Yeah, you're right. I need to change that. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, unless we really want to call Brian at home, I think he's still in Arizona, and say, "Hey, dude, you need to vote on something."
Who's Brian?
Eritar.
Oh, I heard he has a son named Eritar.
Thought his name was Faust.
You shut your mouth. His name is Eritar, son of Eritar.
I met Faust's dad. He looks just like Gandalf.
Outstanding.
He's at a local card shop in Springfield.
So I need to get off in a few minutes, and I've been the one recording.
Sure.
Proposal that we end the official part of the meeting, at least as far as votes are concerned.
Well, do we have a second for this proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
True to her word.
So I think minus a few minor tweaks here and there, we should be ready to vote on this at next Sunday's meeting as well. If we're going to vote on one, we got to vote on both, right?
I would say yes.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Does anyone else have anything before we get out of here? Because I'll just keep playing around all night. I'll do it.
I was going to introduce a specific proposal with the specific transition of power steps laid out in it that we can tweak and then vote on for next time.
Okay. Do you?
I've already put part of it into the chat earlier, but I figured that it's not going to be touching the actual bylaws, just implementation.
In which chat did you put that in?
AWC chat.
Oh, it was before we went on to the whole Sunday stuff. Yeah, here we go. All right, so he's proposing that the new bylaws, should they be voted in, take effect on November 15th, December 1. Okay, we'll pick a date, I guess. Chapter Council, hold first new meeting, week 1.
Well, they should all take place immediately, shouldn't they?
That's the big question. If it goes through, when does it happen, you know?
Well, in which case we can put immediate on that list.
If, well, I think the folks who had the big concern about not having Eritari bylaws, if the national one does pass next week, well, and here's the thing, guys. If it passes AWC next week, it still has to go to the board. So it's...
Is anybody else concerned about the board? Because I am.
Hey.
Just saying.
Sorry, I'm reading what Erica's wrote. Okay, that all looks like fine additions. So even if it passes next week, it would be contingent on the board vote, and I guess that's when the immediate would matter, because I don't know that they'll happen on the same day. We need to reach out to Ursus and have him schedule a meeting, but
that's the concern.
It could potentially not be necessary if it gets voted down, but I mean the board can still vote on it. There's nothing in the bylaws that says Eritari has to vote first. The board could choose to pick up the current proposal and vote immediately. So let me I'll reach out to Ursus, see when he wants to have a board meeting.
But I do propose that we have a takes effect date in our actual implementation proposal.
Right.
That way we can actually organize the new chapter council and get them to have their first meeting.
Yep. They're going to need time. So
Can I ask, and I sound like an absolute asshole in this regard, of the stance that Ursus has in the double dipping that he's been doing this whole time?
Well, I haven't spoken to him since our last board meeting.
He said, yeah.
I don't. So far, he hasn't done anything yet that is out of line with what he said he was going to be doing when he was elected president. So last we left the board meeting, he was still head of Tartarus Invictus. At the elections, he said he thought it'd be by fall. When I spoke to him in the board meeting, he said by the end of the year. And now my concerns about that at that initial meeting were all revolving around Ragnarok War Council. And obviously we haven't had a Ragnarok War Council. And I did not foresee this national committee thing happening. So I don't think he's done anything wrong. I hope that, you know, they figure out whatever election process they have up in Tartarus Invictus, and that he's able to give us his full attention.
I think your thoughts are lovely and valid, but I have a concern that once it gets to the higher level of certain things, he's going to stonewall Jackson because he can.
I don't know that that's true,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean it won't happen. That just I haven't seen him
The
say.
fact that it's a concern should be a concern. I don't know him personally. I don't know the guy personally, but it's the fact that this has been going on and keep being pushed back that bothers me as an Aratari member, and that it could stop a lot of progress from happening because he doesn't want it to happen.
I don't know his thoughts on it personally.
And he can't make that decision by himself.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think you're trying to undermine him right now. We have no information on this, and he is the duly elected president.
I don't think voicing concerns is the same as undermining.
Well, saying you're concerned he's going to stonewall. Are you concerned about that as an Aratari member or a committee member?
Aratari.
Well, it takes 4/5 to pass it.
It does, which is a weird number considering we have 6 board members now. That's one of those spots in the bylaws where it looks like the arbiter was not included in the calculations. But again, there's a lot of uncharted waters that I'm looking at. But regardless, Dominus, you were given feedback here from Ericos. The proposal did. I think we're good to vote on both of these next week. And I will reach out to Ursus here this week and let him know that a vote is coming. And if he wants to schedule a meeting, then he will do that.
Could I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Do we have general consensus that Ericos's input here is all a great idea and that it should be included in the proposal?
This is Barloff. I haven't had a chance to read it because I'm driving. But more than likely, yes, because
I could say
Ericus
out loud.
believes in Dagger and loves Dagger.
Yeah.
So I believe 3 considerations for nominees for BOD positions. This is for the Aratari BOD. First, member must claim the Aratari as their home chapter in order for them to be nominated. A participation requirement. They have to have participated in 5 local Aratari events within the last calendar year to be nominated. And they have to continue with that their entire tenure on the